The performance philosophy has been created to inspire individuals to be the best version of themselves and to educate parents and kids who are beginning their journey through sport. Our podcast will introduce you to individuals who have had a variety of experiences through professional sport and the lessons they've learned along the way. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Paul Watson. Paul has had a professional career spanning over 15 years, including spells with Ipswich, Livingston, Raith Rovers, Falkirk, Dundee United, Dunfermline, and is currently with Spartans, winning multiple trophies along the way. Paul, thanks for joining us today. What's your earliest memory of football?
Earliest memory would be just my dad taking me around to the park. Where we used to stay in Haddington, where I grew up, there was a big field around the back of the house, so yeah, we would just go around there and pass the ball, shooting to the goal and stuff. That's probably my earliest memory.
And when did you start playing with a team?
Probably right away. At 5-6-year-old for a team called Haddington Star. Again, my dad ran the team, played for them for a few years, and then enjoyed it, and it just became pretty much my life from there, carrying a ball about me every day in the street wherever I went. And as you know, football's good for social circles, and met a lot of good friends along the way.
So at what age did you start taking it a bit more serious? So at first it's a bit of fun, you're playing, your dad's taking your team. At what point did you think, right, I'm pretty good at this?
Probably when I went to Hutchie Vale. I was, again, 3 times a week, my dad had to take me from Haddington to Edinburgh, and obviously it was a really good team I was in, good players I played with. But then if I didn't do well, my dad would slaughter me in the car on the way back, pretty aggressive. 12, 13 years old, and I'm in the back of the car getting grilled, my bottom lip shaking, trying not to cry. And that's when I kind of thought, oh, this is pretty serious, because there's different people watching you, and if you're not performing at a high level, then it's not going to work out. What
sort of messaging was he? Was he annoyed at your actual performance, your effort?
No, it was just be everything. Like, I knew myself I didn't do well. I didn't think he probably didn't need to go as hard as he did, but he definitely did, and I can't complain because I ended up having a not bad career. It could have been better, but it ended up all right. So he's probably set me up well.
Well, that's going to be my next question. Do you think that actually helped you?
Probably did, because football's a ruthless industry, and you need thick skin for it, and that probably helped me. You know, if a manager shouted at me at half time, full time, I could handle it pretty well.
Yeah. At what point did you start thinking, right, I'm going to make a career of this?
Probably when I started getting the professional offers in from different teams, and then I had to make a decision on where I wanted to go. And that was a thing I really struggled with, actually.
What age were you at that point?
I was only like 13, 14.
And what were your options?
My options, the ones we narrowed it down to were Ipswich, Chelsea and Rangers. They were the 3. I visited them, and they were the 3 that really stood out for me, and they were the best offers, to be fair. But try to decide which one, I was only a kid, I didn't really know, I needed a bit of guidance, and it's an argument. I would have an argument like at least once a year with my family about it. It would kick off in the household, because my mum always thought I should have went to Rangers.
Yep. What was her reasoning for that?
I think it was a big deal, to be fair, and they were getting something as well. Maybe.
A big deal, do you mean by in terms of like
financial, and they were offering my parents stuff, so I think that's why my mum wanted it. And plus, it kept me up here, closer to Edinburgh. And then I don't know. I think looking back, I probably should have chose Chelsea. It was just when Abramovich came in and the money was really coming into it. Mm-hmm. But my dad just basically put it down to where did you enjoy the most, and I said Ipswich, because there was maybe like 3 Scottish lads there.
Yep.
Liam Craig, Ian Nimmo, and then I lived with them 2, and they looked after me well, and he just says, right, if that's where you enjoy the most, that's where you're going. And he kind of seen it, the pathway would be easier to play in the first team than a Chelsea. And
he's probably looking after your well-being more than anything at that point.
He was just, he said he didn't know, but he just wanted me to go where I was the most happy, and that's where it was. So,
which you could argue is a good parenting decision. Maybe not financially, but if he's looking after your well-being from that point of view, he just wants you to be happy.
Probably. And hindsight is obviously a good thing, but looking back at it, I was only like 13, 14 years old. I could have waited out a bit longer. Mm-hmm. I could have played them all off each other to get a bigger and better deal, but he was just wanting me to go where I was happy, and I chose Ipswich Town.
See, based on that being so young, trying to make that decision, it's funny, people have got a different view on agents. Do you think it's important to be, I suppose, agents there to advise you and make sure you're making the right decision that's going to set you up, hopefully, for success? What age would you start engaging in that route, and do you think it's the right route for players to have one?
It's a difficult one, because I've had a fair share of bad ones over my career, but there is good ones out there, and ones that genuinely want to help you, and they want to. That would have been the perfect opportunity for me and someone there to guide me. But at the end of the day, they want to line their pockets as well. The majority of them, as I say, not all of them, but the majority of them do. So you need to be careful. But at the time, my dad just thought, as I say, he wanted to go where I was most happy, so that's why he went down that route. And
it's difficult to advise on something you've never been through yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if I have kids one day, and if they ever do go into football, I'll be in a good position to advise them, or in sport. But yeah, look, you learn from it. Would I say it was a regret? Possibly. But if I did go to one of the other two teams, I might not have still been playing today, so you never know.
And you might not be sitting here.
Exactly. At the pinnacle.
When you did turn pro, what's your memory of that? So you signed with Ipswich. How did you find going in full time?
I loved it. When I was at Hutchie Vale with Coach Tam Smith, he always pushed us to go to an English team. He didn't want us to stay in Scotland with
good advice.
The initiative, the pro youth here. He wanted us to go to England, so that's one of the big reasons I went down there as well. And I loved it, just being in and amongst it every day. I went down at 15, moved down permanent at 15.
So young.
I'm pretty sure it was illegal at the time, but they found a way around it. And then I moved down there. I was in digs with 3 other lads, and it was brilliant. I loved it.
Carnage.
It was carnage in there, yeah. 2 Irish lads and 2 Scottish lads, 4 of us.
When you were down there, did you feel you're performing at your best? Or do you feel you're still young at that point and try to learn the ropes?
Still, I obviously didn't know the game at all, really. When you think you do at that age, but you don't. I'm a centre back, a defender, and
6'4".
6'4", right. Set up for that. I was 62 kilograms trying to play centre back in England against. I mean, when I was trained with the first team, the centre backs could just hold me off with a pinky. Do you know what I mean? I was so weak. But then you need time to develop. Everyone develops different, and that went against me then, because at Ipswich when I was there, it went under 16s, under 18s, reserve football first team. So there was it's completely different now with under 21s, under 23s. And I didn't develop and fully develop physically until I was about 23, 24. So that went against me with that.
No, I'm just saying, it's funny you said that. I have this argument with so many people. I think the biggest problem in Scotland is you need to step into a first team by 19, so you're under 20s, and at that point you need to go into a first team. And you think, how many players are physically ready to step in a first team at 19 years old?
There's not many of them.
And that's because I'm similar. I would say I was probably at my peak at 23.
Yeah.
And you look at it, and that's why if I was advising a similar concept, I'd be saying go down south, because longevity in your contract, you've got time to develop as a player and as a person. And even if you're going out on loan, you've still got that safety of being with that club. No,
definitely. And it's kind of the story of my career, because when I came back up to Scotland, that's when it changed in England, and that all came in. So that would have definitely benefited me. And also, I think if I did stay at Ipswich longer, it would have forced me to go to right back, different position. And I think I would have done well in that position at that age, rather than coming back up here and playing centre back, because I'm not physically the biggest for a centre back in England. So that's how I think I struggled down there to really kick on.
In terms of the players you played with when you were down there, was there any players that stood out in terms of really high performers, and what separated them from others?
The best player we had, and he's one of the best players I played with, a guy called Paul Murphy, Irish boy. But he doesn't play football anymore. They offered him, every English team wanted him. He was honestly unbelievable at the under 18 level. Trained with the first team all the time. Jim Magilton was the manager, Irish guy. He loved him, and they were offering him the world to stay, but he wanted to go home.
Aye.
He just hated it. Just couldn't. I don't know what it was. He just couldn't settle. He wanted to go home. He had big talks with Arsenal. But then he signed a decent contract with the club, but then because he wanted to go home, the club thought he was going to go home and then sign for Arsenal, but he wasn't. He was just going home, so they had to keep paying him because the maximum you can be fined is 2 weeks' wages.
Right.
So they had to keep paying him for 2 weeks every month, just in case he signed for another club.
Right.
So he just went back and was getting free money for doing nothing basically.
And what happened? Did he just stop playing? Or?
He just stopped playing, and then I think he plays like junior level in Ireland.
And what do you think the reason was? Just the emotional strain at all? Because it is, like you said, it's a cutthroat environment. Like,
it is,
you look at a lot of players, a lot of them, I feel like a lot, when you get to a certain level, technically everyone's about similar.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to who's mentally tough and who's got that resilience to keep pushing through things don't go well.
He had like all the ability, good player, and all the kind of lads loved him, the first team. Obviously the management were telling him to get round him and make him stay. So they loved him, but he just couldn't. I don't know what it was. He's homesick, and he had to go home. But he's like in a youth team player that you've probably never heard of. He's the one that was probably the best, which is mental because there was some big players in that team.
And what made him better than other players? Just his general ability.
Just general ability. It was just a raw talent. Because in that youth team we had Jordan Rhodes, who's obviously banged in goals for fun, and he was above him. I'd say Connor Wickham was in there, a bit younger, mind you. Ed Upson, Jay Reason, kind of other players that had good careers in that youth team, but he was definitely above them, I'd say.
And to see the players that you've played with throughout your career that have went on to sort of the big achieve the most, what separated them?
It's hard because I think you need a big chunk of it's luck in terms of being at the right club at the right time, the right team at the right time to suit you, and a manager to take a shining to you, and he does well. That can change everything. Because if you go into a team, manager loves you, and a guy comes in next and hates you, you can be moved on really quickly. Do you know what I mean? But then a lot of the ones that I've done well as well, there's just a discipline, the work ethic really.
Stay consistent.
Consistent with like Paul Hanlon, for instance, just leaving Hibs now, but he's been there since he left Touchy Vale with me. He went to Hibs and he's just been so professional, so consistent over the years, and that's how he stayed there that long.
So after Ipswich, see with Ipswich, you're obviously talking about physicality and stuff. At that point, did they work on a lot of strength and conditioning?
That was in place, but they had me in a mad diet. I was drinking like 2 pints of the full fat milk in the morning, like every morning, and then 2 of them before I went to bed. Right. And then all this like food in between. But I just could digest it unbelievably. My metabolism was through the roof. And I was just stayed at 62 kilograms for ages, and I could not go above it. Honestly, they used to weigh me like every day, and it would just not move. So it was just like, what chance have you got, really? It was just a time thing. But yeah, they were in the gym doing all that kind of stuff, and
which is quite advanced when you think about it, because I remember I don't think a lot of Scottish teams were doing that at that point.
Then again, that was one of the big things with England. They all had training, they all had academies. The training facilities were there. But in Scotland, I don't even think Rangers or Celtic had an academy at that point. They were just in public parks, so everyone was in place, and it was a great setup. That was like the big thing for me to go down there. And
you touched on nutrition, but the big on that in terms of like each player had their own plan as well.
They definitely put that in place, and obviously I was a young kid, I was eating shit as well, and having an odd drink, but I couldn't seem to put on the weight that they wanted me to. So
when you were at Ipswich, when did you realise that it wasn't going to work out?
Well, it's weird, and this is like, you'll see a theme here in my career. I got pulled into the office and got told I was getting a new 2-year deal. Gave me my squad number. He was like 34 or something like that.
That would be going into the first team?
That would be like a new deal into the first team, yeah. And so I was like delighted with it. And then I remember there was they were quite well known for having a good youth setup. They won the Youth Cup the year before. They beat like Southampton in the final with Bale and Walcott and all that. So they had a good youth setup. And then I remember one day the head of the academy left out of nowhere, just resigned. And then his 2 coaches left as well. But there was no real reasoning for it. Remember, we just thought it was bizarre. And then 2 weeks later, I got pulled in with the stand-in guy who was like the education officer with the manager. And the manager just sat me down, and I was a bit like, what's going on here? And it was Jim Magilton at the time. And I remember he just started going through me, like proper through me. Like, you're fucking doing this, you're doing that, you're cutting corners, like just proper like in my face. And I remember thinking, Jesus, what's going on here? And then Sammy, who was like meant to be there to help me, started going at me as well. So I was a bit like, and they were like, yeah, we're going to release you. He basically said he didn't like me, he's going to release me. So I was a bit like in shell shock. I went away to my calf. I remember phoning my dad. It was a hard phone call to have. I kind of broke down a bit. And
so from your academy manager going, the one obviously liked you, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
Was there any inkling along those lines that, in terms of things were going to change, or was it just literally, if you thought everything was rosy, you then step in and speak to the manager and he just goes off on one?
So I then later found out that the reason they left was due to that decision.
Right.
Because apparently they'd agreed to sign, I think 3 or 4 of us from the youth team, but they ended up only keeping one.
Right.
And completely went back in the word. And basically the head of the academy was like, you can't do that. You've told the boy that. It's basically, you can't do it. So that's why they resigned.
Which is morally fair play, like.
I know, and I didn't find that out till a bit later, which is good for them, but obviously it's just bad luck for me, really, as a selfish point of view. So yeah, I was a bit like in shell shock, and after that I wanted to come home. I could have stayed down with Peterborough. I think it was Fergie's son was the manager then, and there was a few clubs around that area, Colchester. They were keen on me, but I was just like, I had in my head, I was like, I want to go home. I just want to get out of here. I want to go home. And I remember I just drove to the airport, jumped on a flight and came back.
I think people forget as well, being such a young age and away from home, it is quite tough. Because it's like anything, when you go through tough moments in football, and going home to your family environment is safe.
Yeah.
But I think when you go back to digs, you're still in that environment.
That's it.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're constantly in it. And I do think mentally it gets really draining for the fact sometimes you just want to be away from it. So you can recharge and sort of go again.
And it's that all the other boys asking you the question, what's happened there? I thought you were signing, and you don't really have the answers. So that's why I just wanted to get myself away. I actually did play a game because I just left all my stuff still down there, so I had to go back down. And I played a game for Peterborough, but I remember I was just like miles off it. Just like mentally wasn't there.
Yep.
And again, I'd made the decision I wanted to just sign my club back home, which maybe was the wrong thing to do, but I just went for that.
And where did you end up going on the back at?
So like after that, I remember I went into a few different clubs, and then I remember I was going into Kilmarnock with Gary Locke. He would drive me through, Mehdi Tayo and David Fernandez. Right. So like 3 like big players at the time with their careers. And then I remember going in doing pre-season with them and done pretty well. And Jim Jeffries sat me down and was like, we're going to sign you. And they had a thing in Scotland at the time. You had to have like 5 like homegrown players in the squad. I think a match day squad.
Yep. And
they were a bit short on that as well. So he was saying, like, we'll get the deal done over the weekend. So I thought, that's very good. Went again back home, it's going to get done. And he phoned me on the Friday night saying, there's a game tomorrow, you don't need to come in. He says, come in Monday and we'll get the deal sorted. We'll send the terms over to you maybe the Sunday night. And then I remember waking up on the Monday morning and he had resigned. Jim Jeffries resigned, and it was all to do with a deal to do with Gary Locke staying. They wanted to keep him, don't think the chairman did. So that he resigned. So and then he's phoned me being like, look, I'm really sorry, but I've resigned. So the deal's
you're back to square one.
Deal's off. So at that point I'm thinking, fuck's sake, man. So then I've got into Livingston and they were in the championship. Gary Bowen was the manager, and they offered me a deal, and at that point I was just I would have signed for anything, to be honest, just because I wanted to get into it. So they signed me, and they had the Italian owners, so they just got new owners after this big mess with the Italian owners. I forget their name. And they had like a legal case going on, and they were like adamant to me that they were going to win the case. So don't worry about it, we're going to win the case, like no problem at all. So that I signed for them on the Friday, and on the Monday they got demoted to the 3rd division. Right. They lost the legal case. So I was a bit like, okay, now. So I was trying to get out of it, to be honest, but I couldn't, which is again poor advice from an agent, not having that kind of get out clause in the deal. And
And it's something you wouldn't even think about, let's be
No,
honest.
I didn't think that was ever going to happen. So I basically then played with Livingston, was terrible for like 6-7 games. I mean, like my head was gone because I went from a 2-year deal in the English Championship on a team that was like pushing for promotion to the Premier League to now in the Scotland's bottom league, like within a few weeks. And so my head's absolutely gone. And I remember Liam Fox, who was the captain of the club, he came to me and was just like, he's like, Watson, you need to get your finger out. You're miles off it here and you're not going to play. And then I've ever since he had that conversation with me, I just thought like, he's right. And I let it go and then just concentrated on performing and gradually started getting a bit better and performing for them.
And how long did you stay there for then?
So I stayed there and to be fair, I landed lucky. Although it was unlucky with going down, we won it used to be the 3rd division, it's now the 2nd division. We ended up winning that and then we won so we got the club back to the Championship straight away. Yep. We got back-to-back promotions and then I think we finished 3rd in the Championship in the first season. But at the time there was no playoffs. It was a hard league to get out of.
Was it 1 up, 1 down?
1 up, 1 down, which is tough. But it ended up being like the best dressing room I've been in.
Yeah.
I met a lot of good people in there and I still keep in touch with most of them. So it ended up being a really good time.
See, do you reckon the fact you were able to go down that division and get games under your belt at that age, in hindsight, it's worked out quite well for the fact you're still young, you're still developing, and you're getting first team experience? Yeah,
probably didn't realise that at the time at all, but definitely it would have stood me in good stead for longer, yeah. But then you think, on the flip side of that, you think if the Kilmarnock thing goes through, you think, they stay in the Championship and you play games then, and you might, if you do well, you move on as well. Yeah, because you're playing at a higher level. Do you know what I mean?
It's actually, that's what people realise, when you go down the levels, it actually gets harder.
Yeah.
And even to get noticed, like, because how many people are watching these games at the lower levels?
Exactly. And then they think, we'll see how he does if he comes up. And then it's on you, but then you're getting older as well. Because 24, 25, young in football, you're getting on. So it was...
Sad times when you're getting on at that age,
I know. I'd love to be that age now.
What was your highest point in terms of your football career then? We could run through all the clubs you've been at, but it'd be quite good to think, at what point where you felt like you were at your best, you're performing at your best, and you were really enjoying it?
Probably Dundee United. I was only there for 2 years, but that was like, we trained at St Andrews, facilities were brilliant. Got lucky as well that the club, it was kind of weird period when I signed, and then maybe 6 months to 8 months in, the club got bought by an American. So seeing all that transition and all the different stuff that came with it was really interesting. But then, so it was Jabba Lazo that signed me. He was very different as a manager, but I quite liked it. But a lot of the Scottish boys didn't, because it's different ways. Like, for instance, if in football you get a Wednesday off and a Sunday off. It's quite common in Scottish football, but he came in and made it just a Monday.
Right.
And the Scottish lads just didn't take to that at all.
Cool doing Sunday.
Like in Sunday, cool down. You didn't do much, but you had to come in, and you've got players coming from about all different places. So they ended up having you had to live within a certain radius of the stadium.
Yep.
So everyone had to move through, and they like paid to relocate you as well, which was good. But then the transition with the team wasn't doing that well, but then the American owners came in, and then Robbie Nielsen gets the job. On before that, so he's culturally trying to change the team. Why do you think British players have got such a problem with trying to implement modern practices? Like, you look at John Collins with Hibs, like John Collins, ultimate professional in terms of he wanted to try and change it, and there was complete backlash from the players. I think it's just the Scottish. It's more the Scottish mentality. They like to drink. They go out on a Saturday night, and they enjoy like the set routines that they've got, and looking for excuses as well. I would complain about it every now and then if you had a Saturday night out or something, you're in the Sunday. But ultimately, I think it's just a mentality thing in this country. It's never really worked for any manager that's tried to really change it.
Do you think it's changing now? I know when you look at players down south, like they're athletes in every sense of the word, like the way they conduct themselves, the way they prepare for games, what they eat, how they train, like they've got everything to make them the best version of themselves. Do you think Scotland are still quite far behind in that aspect, or do you reckon they're trying to change it slowly but surely?
But it comes down to, for me, it comes down to a finance point of view and money. The money in England's incredible in the Premier League. So all these players have got, they've got chefs, they've got their own PTs outside of football.
Yep.
So they've got like, the top masseuses in the league, the physios. They've got absolutely everything. So for them, it's, I wouldn't say it's easier, but it is because they've got everything around them that they need. Whereas in Scotland, you've got one physio in a club, and some of them aren't even physios; they're sports therapists, and they need to take on the whole first team and the youth team.
Yeah.
And it's just not like it's impossible for them. But that's in the majority of the clubs.
Yeah.
And it's not sustainable for me, and then that will have a knock-on effect to the players as well.
How much, Joel, do you think these things have an impact in terms of players performing? And see, in terms of like players want to push on and become the best version of themselves and maybe have aspirations of playing down south. Like, how important do you think all these things are?
As in like nutrition and all that?
Yeah, in terms of like, obviously you've played with a lot of players, the ones that are like absolutely obsessed with doing all these things, do you think they perform better than players that maybe like a drink at the weekend and aren't they that fussed about their diet?
I think at the top level that would make a difference, because that's like they're chasing that 1% all the time. I don't think it would have a massive difference in Scotland. Maybe outside the top 6 in Scotland, but outside of that I don't think it would have a massive difference, because I've played with some players who do everything by the book, the best professionals ever, eat so clean, they don't drink, they're in early, they stay late, and they'll come a Saturday and they're terrible. Yet the guy that's out at the weekend and the Tuesday night, he scores a hat-trick or something and does really well.
Do you think there's an element of this players sometimes care too much and it impacts their performance and they're a bit more tense come game time?
It can be, aye. It can. I mean, sometimes it just comes down to they're not good enough.
Yeah, true. Do you think, say for instance, you were a manager, would you be a bit more lenient on players playing at a low level then, just to try and create a good culture and team ethic? Do you think that, obviously, team building is more important than your small percentages in terms of nutrition and whatever else? Yeah,
I think you can get away with... I think most players now, though, in the modern era, they know the nutrition side of it, I think. But then I think you could get away with that side of it to a certain level of building a good squad, not a drink culture, but like just a good environment and team bonding. That would get you so far, I think. I think it would get you a long way.
Yep.
But when you reach higher levels, you need more than just that, I think.
Do you think Arbroath's a good example in terms of like, because they had a really good collective spirit, didn't they? And they done quite well considering we're still part-time.
No, they did, yeah. They were like the best part-time team for a long time, for years. And I know a few players that have played there, so it's hear different stories coming out of there, so it's difficult to agree with. But no, and part-time's different as well, because you can't spend too much time on the training pitch going through tactics, shape, and doing everything you want to do purely because you've only got 2 nights a week. And a lot of the boys want to train, and then if you're just doing that, stand still with mannequins on the pitch,
not fit enough to play.
You're going to lose them.
Yeah,
you're going to lose the dressing room quickly.
Sorry, so Robbie Nielsen came in at Dundee United.
Robbie Nielsen came in and just really drove the standards up, and then obviously with Mark Organ, I think that's how you pronounce his name, American owner comes in, and then they just start signing players. I remember I was sitting I went to school, a good mate of mine, Callum Booth.
Right.
He was at Dundee United at the time, and I was in his house. It was the January transfer deadline day. I remember I was just sitting watching it as you do, and it just kept pinging up. Dundee United have signed, an hour later, Dundee United have signed 13 players in the January. We were sitting there, fucking hell. And then the next day we're in at training.
Are you looking at it as a good thing though? Are you thinking yourself, oh?
No, we're thinking, shit, we're on our way here. Like, not really realising what's happening. But then we go in the next day to training, and there's just 13 new guys sitting in our seats, and it was so awkward. We got in early so we could get a seat, but then you've got all these players coming in, they didn't know where to sit, so it's awkward for them. Then you just got like a group sitting in the middle, and it was so bizarre because the team before, it was a lot of foreign boys from all different countries.
Yep.
And it was a bit of a weird. There was one player, Freddie Franz, who spoke about 4 or 5 languages, so he was like kind of you had to go through him to speak to the boys. It was really bizarre. But then all these kind of lads came in that Robbie had signed, and it was just carnage for a spell. There's a bit in St Andrews, so you've got the 2 main pitches, and then there's like a big row of trees,
right,
and there's pitches to the trees. So like that's where the kids trained. So basically, if you won it with the first team, you got sent through the trees.
Right.
And it was like a punishment almost. So there's boys getting sent through the trees, left, right and centre. But it was a weird time. But he came in and eventually got a settled team in, and he drove the club forward and to like a high standard, to be fair.
And you still played that season?
I still played. I was a bit in and out, but then I kind of got stuck at right back when he came in, but then played there, and we got to the playoff final against St Mirren, and it's still a sore one. I've never watched the game back, but we got beat 2-0 on penalties,
Right.
which is quite a hard thing to do.
I can imagine.
We missed every penalty, and that was just a low because of where that would have took us. It would have been really good, but you kind of take a blow. And I remember seeing the chairman came into at St Mirren in the away changing room, and he was just like, you could say he wasn't happy, but he kind of just says we like need to win the league next year. And then obviously we signed Lauren Shankland, and he scored. Like, I remember he scored 4 in his debut against Inverness, and we were just thinking, fucking perfect. Like,
well, it shows you how important a goal scorer is. Like,
like I remember when we the season before we were playing against him, and every time he'd come in, he was at Ayr United at the time, and every time he looked at the scores, he was scoring like 3-4, 2-3-4 every game. And we've actually said that amongst ourselves. Imagine we had him in this team, with like romped the league. And when we got him, he got 4 in his debut against Inverness, and just
kicked on from there.
We battered the league.
So what was your highest moment? Would you say winning the league?
Aye, that was a big moment. Well, it was bittersweet for me again. I told you there's a theme here because I think we were like 16 points clear of Inverness, who were second, and we had I remember we played Shrewsbury, random story, like in it was like mid-season friendly. We got the train down, played them, and then like the whole club were there, like all the background staff, the sporting director Tony Askar, and then Robbie had to go back to do the telly game, so he was away, but he was like no drinking, like everyone just bedding away. Yeah. But we were all out, and then we're back at the hotel, and but the sporting director and all that were there with some of the directors and all that, and they had a few drinks, and they're like, well, if we win the league, or when we win the league, because we're that far ahead, like take us away as you get. But boys were shouting, I was like, shouting different destinations, but I was like, no, take us to Vegas if we win it. And this just grew arms and legs massively. Yeah. But basically, long story short, they agreed to take us to Vegas on a private plane.
Right.
All like paid for. So it would have been really good. And we were like 16 points clear. And then the season gets suspended for 2 weeks from COVID. And then we were like, I remember Lee McCulloch, who was assistant manager, was saying, don't worry lads, like this will blow over in a couple of weeks. And we'll be back in, so keep yourself taking over. And fucking hell, we know what happened. So like, the league got shut down, and then it ended. We were crowned champions, but all the celebrations we had planned cancelled. We had to do it over a Zoom call. So
what are you more upset about? The fact you couldn't celebrate with the trophy, or the fact you couldn't go to Vegas?
I think the celebrations as well, because Radio 1's big weekend was in Dundee that year as well. And we had a good spot for that. Obviously the trophy celebrations, the PFA awards that come with it, everything just lost because of that. And then that would
be devastating, because if you actually think, obviously you put in so much work, and all the other boys would have as well, and it's so hard to win a league. Like, I think people go through their careers maybe never winning anything. And the fact you've won the championship at a really good level to get yourself to the SPL, and it's like you can't even celebrate it.
No, I can't celebrate it, and alone in a flat in Dundee myself, just on a Zoom. It was shocking.
Drinking your sorrows.
Drinking my sorrows, trying to pretend it was a good time, but it wasn't. And that just that killed it. But between winning the championship or it was the Ramsden's Cup at the time. It's not a great cup, but it was because we beat Rangers in the final that made it a bit more special.
Pretty impressive as well.
It was good day that, yeah.
Which brings us to the next, where the highs come the lows.
Yeah.
So what was the lowest point?
I've had a few. I've lost 5 playoff finals, which isn't a good start. I think it's 4 or 5.
It's funny because it's a catch-22 that one, right? Because it's never good to lose one, but if you actually look on the whole as a season, getting to playoff finals is a good achievement in itself. But obviously the fact you're never getting that end glory that's getting you that promotion. Yeah, the one at Falkirk, I think Rangers won the league, and then we beat Hibs on the last day. Or we were playing different teams, but we were level on points.
And then, but we won, they won, but we better goal difference. So we finished above them, and then we beat them to get to the playoff final. We played Kilmarnock, and then we scored. We had like an unbelievable knack of scoring like late goals that year. I think we only lost like two or three games, and we scored 91st minute at home to win 1-0. But probably the worst thing we done. We went to the away leg, and it was like all about keeping it tight for 10-15 minutes, and then because it was sold out at Kilmarnock. The crowd will turn on them. And I remember it was a roasting hot day in the AstroTurf, packed, and we were 3-0 down after about 10 minutes.
Game plan out the window.
For fuck's sake. So that was done. Like, it was done then. We lost 4-0. That was a low point. And then the St Mirren one was a low point as well. Horrible. I've never watched them games back either, and I never will. No, I never will.
Is it worth getting beat on penalties or not?
Penalties is horrible. Because I remember we had good players in that team, like Osman Sow, Peter Pollitt, Shifranco, like good players. And when they went up, first one, like, right, come on, Pavel, score, gets off the start, and missed it. We're like, oh, fuck, right. And it was Osman, right, come on, Oz, get this in. Hits the post, we're like, oh, shit. And then Pete goes, we missed it. And then I remember Callum Booth went on the fourth one, and he's went to like lace it just down the middle, and he's like hit the top of the ball, and it's just like bobbled into the goal. And then all the fans run onto the pitch. I remember like just sitting down, and one of the fans came up, boots you in the back, kicks you in the back, and for fuck's sake, just get me out of here.
See with penalties, this is funny. I speak to the kids about this because in essence it's a skill set.
But
then the fact, obviously, the different scenarios you're in, it's a mindset in terms of fact, can you remain calm and then execute the skill set as opposed to panicking on the big occasions. It's
tough. You can't replicate it. I missed my last one actually. I remember, and it was even worse. It was in COVID, no fans.
Right.
And we played. I was at Dunfermline. We played St Johnstone. It was the year St Johnstone won the double, so we could have stopped that. I remember putting the ball down. I went first. I remember putting the ball down. It was eerie as anything, and it was Xander Clark in goal. And I usually go like been practicing bottom right. I remember putting the ball down, just glanced up. I was like, "Fucking, he's massive." Like, he was so big, and I was like, "I'm smashing. I'm just going to smash this." And I remember I just put my foot through it to like go down the middle and kind of dragged it that way, and he just saved it like that. And he was laughing after. He's like, "I knew you were going to do that." I was like, "Fuck!" Like, I knew. I was going to go bottom right. He's like, "You would have scored." And they ended up beating us then, and they won the cup. But you can't reenact it. I think Southgate does a good thing with England. He takes like 3 players at a time, just random times of camps, away from everyone else in a private, like just a goal.
Yep.
And gets them to go through I think they take 2 each to go through the routine. Or 2 or 3 each they take, and then they'll like analyse it and then picks the best ones out of that. And then they ended up winning a shootout. Yeah. They won a shootout and then with it, I think.
Yeah. Because they were renowned for losing.
Yeah. So that was quite a strange way of doing it, but quite different and good. I think they beat Colombia.
I think it's funny. See, when you watch like top level teams play, certain players are just not facing the slightest, and the standard of penalties are unreal. And it's like you said, they just go through like a set routine. So they've done it before, they've visualised it before, they then step in, and when they're ready to do it, they just execute.
They're just different. It's Spartans, the striker Blair Henderson. He does it, and he's brilliant at it. He does the kind of stutter run, just stares at the goalie the whole time, and he just puts him the wrong way most times.
Repetition,
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Fair play to him.
Do you have any regrets from your career?
Loads. No, I don't know. It's a hard one, that, because I probably wish I went to Chelsea as a kid, but as I say, or Rangers, but you never know how it's going to plan out. It could be completely different, and you just unknown. But you wish you could have done a few things different here or there, but ultimately, yeah, but you are, so you can't have too many regrets.
Just lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Everything's a win.
Life experience.
Everything's a win.
What advice would you give to young athletes? So young athletes starting out on their journey, whatever sport that may be. What advice would you give? How old are we talking? Anyone. So I suppose, what age does kids start playing football? So the kids I coach are predominantly from 5 till through to the oldest are 13 now. So I think the ones that are 13, you can see they're beginning to, their mindset's now shifting. You can see they're like really focused on what they're doing.
Yeah.
So if you're giving them advice in terms of the fact that they're in high school now, they're really dedicated to what they're doing, what advice would you give?
I would the biggest thing, enjoy it first. You need to enjoy it, because I see far too many like you see it too often. Kids get the parents live their life through their kids, and they're pushing them. And most of the time, the kid doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So they're not enjoying it. So you need to enjoy it. And then if you do enjoy it, and you realise you've got something there, and you want to work hard at it, it's just kind of discipline to sacrifice certain things in your life that you'll need to, like not going out the weekend, and if you've got the game on the Sunday or whatever it may be, you need to give sacrifice along the way. But you need to be prepared to do that. And it can be difficult though.
That's the thing I find difficult in terms of it. So a lot of parents have got no idea what it takes because they've not done it. They've not experienced it. And I think if a lot of them did experience it, I'm not sure they would want their kids to pursue it. I think they would want them to be the best version of themselves, but obviously you've been through it. If you had kids, would you?
No, if that's what I was going to say, if I had kids, I would probably want to push them away from football, just because how ruthless it is. But then you meet incredible people, you meet good friends, and it puts you in good social circles.
Yep.
So it's got massive positives. So it would be hard to tell them no, but I would be a bit leaning towards pushing them away from it.
Yeah, don't make it your sole identity.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think that, I remember obviously when my career went Pete Tong, I remember it was like, I was only known for like, that was my whole thing. And it was like, I didn't know who I was in the back. It was like, it took me years trying to figure out what am I going to do now.
That's where I'm at now.
Well, it is, mate, and people don't realise that. Like, you dedicate so much of your hours in your life, your whole week just revolves around games at the weekend. Your preparation, your training, like making sure you're set for that one game, then the game's done right next week, and it just goes on and on and on.
No, definitely. That's your whole, like you say, your whole week is just fully prepared for that Saturday, and then if you don't perform on that Saturday,
you're
then
miserable.
It affects your Saturday night, it affects your Sunday, until you can reset and go again on the Monday. So it can be tough, really tough.
As you've got older, are you now better at dealing with the sort of setbacks in terms of, do they impact you as much?
After I left Dundee United, I kind of changed my mindset in terms of just like, I just fell out of love with the game completely, if I'm going to be honest. And from what happened there at the end, I was just like, oh, I'm done with this now. I'll enjoy it, but I'll not let it affect me like after the game. So I'll not take it home with me, basically. I made that decision after I left Dundee United. And
you've been happier since you made that call?
Been happier, but probably just don't enjoy football as much.
Right.
I completely fell in love with it. And again, when I went to Dunfermline, liked it under Stevie Crawford. But then when he left and the next guy came in, I'll not even name, just hated it. Just hated him and hated it and just fell in love with football again.
That's what I think funny as well. It's like, it's somebody else's opinion.
Yeah.
Like you're reliant, the whole thing. I wish somebody had told me that when I was starting out.
Yeah.
Like it's how you feel about yourself is what's the most important thing. But I think when you're young and you're trying to impress managers for contracts or whatever, it's all about that one person's opinion.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not in control of that.
And that's
like you don't know what they're seeing. You don't even know how educated their decision is they're making on the back of that. Because I'm sure you've dealt with coaches, even at a high level, you would probably not agree with a lot of their decisions in terms of how they see the game, know exactly how you see it.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the ones where it is. It's like 1 minute you're loved, next minute somebody else is in, and it's like, well, they've got a completely different view.
That's it. And it goes back to what I said at the start, a lot of it's down to luck. In terms of, you get a manager that comes in and loves you, and then he does well, moves on, takes you with him. And then there's numerous players that's happened to. So you do need that luck along the way, but yeah, I fell in love with it a bit. And then when I went to Spartans, I've found it a bit better, but it's just difficult. I just find it difficult.
I suppose you've touched on it a bit. So in terms of the advice you give young athletes is to make sure they enjoy it. What advice would you give parents to young athletes?
Don't live your life through them. That's the biggest thing. Just let them enjoy it. Obviously, they'll need. It's difficult, I suppose, because you need to be disciplined on them to not allow them to go out when they want to go out. You know, when they need to stay in and prepare for the next game. That I get, that can be really difficult, but you need to let them enjoy it ultimately, and just let them make the decision.
And just help them, support them.
Try and support them and guide them in a loose way, but ultimately it needs to come from them. They need to want to do it.
Because it's going to get, if they do get to the level they want to get to, it's going to get to a point where it's them that's going to have to drive themselves forward. And
it's not the parents needing them to do it, it's the player wanting to do it.
Yeah.
I would say is the biggest thing.
See, in terms of, so you've obviously wealth of experience throughout, we're saying over 15 years in professional sport. Who's been the most influential person that you've dealt with? Whether that's a teammate, a coach?
One of the coaches at Ipswich, probably Richard Hall, because he was a centre back, and I think he was at Southampton, West Ham, had a really good career. He helped me massively from probably 15 to 18, kind of shaping me into the player that I became, or I am now. And it was down to his advice, because he had the best, he played my position, so he was really hard on me. He would be really tough on me, but ultimately I would say he was probably the one coach-wise that helped me the most.
And do you think in terms of, like, it's funny, we've had Keith on the podcast before, and both you and him have both said the most influential coaches have been their youth team coaches.
Yeah.
Do you reckon in terms of, like, the fact he's pushing you, like he wants the best for you, it's all coming from the right place? Do you reckon that's a big factor?
I definitely will be. And I think it helped that he played my position, so like I knew what he said to me, I was taking it on board, and a lot of the stuff I didn't understand, but you would just kind of nod your head and agree. But then he would actually come over and be like, do you understand it? And you'd be like, no, like away from the group. And then he would break it down so you did understand it. And I think that was the biggest thing for me that helped me.
That's a good way to do it. Like, I think a lot, especially when you're younger, you might not be confident enough to say it within the group.
Yeah. No, definitely. He was brilliant with me. The whole setup there was good, to be honest. From the players that were there to the coaches. It was just disappointing in the way it finished. Because it is a good club, and they've finally got themselves in the Premier League now.
Yeah, exciting.
I know, it's mad.
And the last question for you, life after football.
Yeah, it's difficult, that. Something I'm struggling with massively. So I'm the youngest in my kind of friendship group. So that, and the ones, they've always said to me, make sure you got something in place after football. Kind of drummed it into me since I was like 21. So I've been thinking about this since then, kind of loosely. I'm now 33 and I'm still no idea what I want to do. And obviously making the transition to part-time give me a bit of time to dabble in and out a few things and figure out what I want to do, but still not there yet. And it is quite it's not a worry, but it can be stressful.
Yeah, no, it will be. It will be, because it will be thinking ahead in terms of, because you've still got a long part of your life to go.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? You're still young.
And the biggest fear for me is diving into the wrong thing and then getting stuck in it. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Like maybe you do a degree and it's 4 years and you're in too deep, or you pick a career and you're stuck in it because you're relying on that income and you can't get out. So it's just picking the right thing. But I know when I do pick the right thing, I'll look forward to it and give it everything.
You will be passionate about it as well.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
So in terms of like life after football, in terms of the skill sets you've learned and you've picked up throughout your life through football, how do you reckon you're going to be able to use them going forward? I know you're not sure what you want to do next, but what skill sets have you learned that you can maybe use going forward in your next career?
A lot of the obvious one, obviously, everyone pushes you, says just be a coach, be a manager, which is a possibility. But sometimes I change my mind all the time in terms of I just want to get my life back, kind of have a normal life type thing. Do you know what I mean? Not just everything revolves around the Saturday. Because then you become a manager, it's more stress, higher pressure, less security. So, and then if you don't do well, kind of a couple of years down the line, you're back to where you are now. If you're sacked, you only get maybe 1-2 max chances at it. So that's kind of where my head's at with that. But I don't know, maybe probably figured out I need to be my own boss as well. I don't think 9 till 5's for me, but it's figuring out what to do. It's not easy. When
you look at the people you've met and so I think communication skills massive in terms of what you learn from football.
Yeah.
Like you can deal with people from different aspects of different like lives. Do you know what I mean? Like people have got different backgrounds. So I think that's a big thing. And then the way you talk and you present yourself.
Yeah, and not scared of failure either, because I've had plenty of it in that
setbacks,
time.
exactly.
Setbacks and how you deal with that and kind of deal with high pressure situations and being able to do that. Yeah, so I think there is a good skill set learned along the way. It's just putting that into the right industry or the right step next.
And where would the fans be watching you play next season?
I don't know, actually. Most likely Spartans. I would love to play abroad. I've been wanting to go abroad for a long time, but it was all set in stone for me to go to America, and then I'd done my cruciate, so that kind of derailed that. But I would like to go over there and coach. That would be kind of the goal, but it's getting over there is the difficult thing.
I think if you went to a university, there's probably less pressure in terms of results driven.
Yeah.
I would think. I think you get more time than the professional game, obviously.
Yeah, I'd agree, yeah.
But I think coaching in America would be an unreal experience.
No, I agree. It's the sun on your back, different lifestyle. I'd quite like to buy into that.
Even the facilities and how much they invest in all that sort of aspect. It's like, again, it's catering for like to maximise players' potential.
A lot more money as well for coaching out there compared to here.
Yeah.
Which is always
the problem in the Scottish game,
exactly.
No, the thing is there's a lot of volunteers and people dedicating their time in it.
That's it.
And you would think we'd be one of the biggest sports in the country. They would have more full-time coaches and around players, developing them and helping them achieve what they want.
Help them on the way, yeah. So we finally got the national team qualifying for tournaments consistently, so hopefully that drip feed down to the grassroots.
But it's going to inspire you, would hope,
We would like to think so.
And how do you think Scotland will get on?
I think we'll struggle, to be honest. Not to big that up and then bring it back down.
You've heard it here
I think
first.
it's a tough group. Germany, the hosts, the start, I think they'll struggle. I hope I'm wrong, but I hope we do well. It's just a difficult group, isn't it?
To be honest with me, I've not even looked at it.
No.
We're going to be training on Friday night,
Chop
and
that
the kids are like, I'm like, obviously we're going to give them the night off because it's good for the kids to watch the national team.
Yeah.
I get frustrated watching Scotland.
I
think they've been better obviously today, so I can't really judge. But before, I think it's one of the ones where just because they set out negatively, like I would rather watch a team go out and try and implement the game plan, being positive as opposed to. And I get some games you need to sit in slightly, but
it's helped us as well. Like I know we qualified for this one. Was it automatically? Was it? Before, I think the one before it was through
playoff.
But it was like a made up playoff to get us in basically. And I've actually heard other Scottish players say they wish that was in place when they played.
Yep.
Because we would have qualified more. So that's definitely helped this team.
Yep.
But then getting that experience in that tournament, and it shows we're doing a lot better now. So hopefully we do well.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So have you got anything else you'd like to add, mate?
Oh,
Don't do it.
don't do it.
Don't do it.
Get out of it.
All right, thanks for coming, Paul. Appreciate it. And all the best. We'll have a good summer and all the best for next season.
No problem. Thanks for having me.